I waited 3 long years for Xie Jin's reply, but not a single letter came. The night he returned home, a torrential downpour raged. I went searching with my lantern and stumbled upon him speaking of me with the noble lady. She's of lowly birth and fatherless, why should you care about our betrothal? A thick stack of letters lay between them. One every 10 days, never missed. All written by Xie Jin to her. I stood frozen for a long time. Turning away, I tossed the extinguished lantern onto the shore and boarded the departing boat. Later I heard that night the river rose. Xie Jin, ever self-disciplined and proper, clutched a broken lantern and leaped madly into the river, searching for the girl betrothed to him since childhood. Midnight rain soaked the green gauze window. I was writing to Xie Jin again. When father lay dying, he told me to take the marriage contract to the Xie household. Xie Jin and I were betrothed since childhood. Though his nature was rather cold, he would patiently lower his gaze to teach me to read. The Xie family gradually declined, and 3 years ago, Xie Jin left to seek opportunities elsewhere. Before his departure, he asked if I would be willing to serve as a companion and tutor to the young lady of the Jiang household. At that time, the matriarch of the Xie family was ill. I thought that taking on the role of companion and tutor would naturally lighten the burden on Xie Jin's shoulders. So I nodded in agreement. He praised me as a good girl. He couldn't help but reach out and stroke my hair. Xiao Chan, go to the Jiang residence and learn proper etiquette. It will serve you well when you take charge of the household. But Jiang Yintan was no easy girl to deal with. My 3 years as her companion were miserable. She often made me write in her place. If my writing was poor and drew the tutor scolding, she'd punish me by making me copy texts. But once, when my writing was good, the tutor praised me in class for showing the grace of a scholar's daughter. She returned, poured ink from the inkstone over my head, and sneered at me with a sideways glance. Xie Jin, what are you? Stealing my spotlight? You're not worthy. The ink stung my eyes, bringing tears of pain. Her maid beside her made a pointed remark, what the young mistress discards, you're not worthy of possessing. I could have refused. Her tone was teasing, it's so late. Aren't you afraid your fiancé will worry if you don't go back? My hand gripping the lantern clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath seemed to catch in my throat. Xie Jin paused his writing and smiled softly, she's nowhere near as important as you. Jiang Yintan gave his chest a light punch, but her handwriting is almost identical to yours. You've spent 3 years together day and night, bound by betrothal, don't you harbor any feelings? He dipped his brush in the inkstone as if nothing had happened, his writing uninterrupted. She comes from humble origins and lost her father. Why should you care about our betrothal? Had you not needed a companion for study, I would never have taught her lessons. Jiang Yintan reached out to stroke Xie Jin's cheek, of course I trust you. When you sent her to me back then, you didn't hesitate for a moment. These past 3 years, I endured by clinging to memories of his kindness toward me. His gentle eyes and brows as he patiently tutored me. When I fell asleep over my homework, he fanned me for an entire afternoon. But even teaching me was only because of Jiang Yintan. Only later did I realize my face was wet. I reached up to wipe it, unsure if it was rain or tears. My palm stung sharply. Looking down, I saw it was pinched raw, bleeding. Truthfully, I didn't want to cry. Yet tears disobeyed, falling onto the old scar on my wrist, a burn from candlelight. Jiang Yintan had deliberately scorched me when she ordered me to hold a candle for her in anger. Burns shouldn't touch water. But the Xie household could no longer afford servants. I still had to brew medicine for the old madam and wash both our clothes. Frostbite and burns combined, the pain was excruciating, keeping me awake all night. Like a tattletale, I poured all these heartbreaking details into my letters. Back then, I somehow knew he probably wouldn't reply. Yet I still held out hope. During those 3 years Xie Jin taught me calligraphy, I endured countless strokes from his ruler. Now I suddenly understood. When Xie Jin tutored Jiang Yuntan, he must have been reluctant to strike her palm with that ruler. Jiang Yuntan donned her veil, and Xie Jin personally escorted her to the carriage. Returning to the study, he frowned, wiping his right cheek with his sleeve. There was freshly smudged rouge there. Lifting his eyes, he saw me sitting there waiting for him and froze. Rainwater dampened my hair at the temples, dripping down my cheek and sliding away. His hands stopped mid-wipe. I stared at him, tears spilling unbidden from my eyes. 3 years. I wrote you so many letters. Why didn't you ever reply to a single one? He looked at me impatiently. Xiao Chan, I told you I'm busy. Why can't you understand me a little? His words grew increasingly hurried. You're older now, you should be more sensible. It's just a few letters, is it really worth throwing a tantrum like this? I gave a bitter laugh. I saw everything just now. With a sharp snap, I wrenched his hand away and pulled out the old marriage contract. Xie Jin frantically tried to grab it back. But he couldn't stop me from tearing it to shreds in moments. The riverside wind blew open the window lattice, scattering the fragments across the floor. They swirled like snow between us. He, who always maintained his composure, now wore a look of near ferocity. My voice finally cracked with tears. If you had someone you loved, why didn't you tell me? I wouldn't have clung to you. Xie Jin's face turned deathly pale. He stood frozen, silent for a long moment, his hand tightening around my arm. I wiped my tears and composed myself. Back then, I had nowhere to go. The Xie family took me in. You were gone for 3 years, I looked after the household for 3 years. We're even. Let's call off the betrothal. He seized my wrist, refusing to let go, and said, word by word, Xie Jin, I refuse. He was clearly furious. He wouldn't even use the diminutive Xiao anymore. As we stood locked in the standoff, someone knocked and announced, the rain has made the road slippery. Miss Jiang has fallen on her way here. Xie Jin released my wrist, threw on his cloak, and started to leave. Turning back to me, he said, stay put. Wait here for me to return. Without another glance, he pushed open the door and left. As if utterly certain I would wait obediently for him. But at this point, I no longer wished to wait for him. The small floral cloth bundle in my arms held the old lady's private savings, accumulated over the years. She had given it all to me tonight, along with that old marriage contract. I picked up the umbrella and lantern I had brought, and set off through the rain toward the riverbank. After an unknown length of time, I suddenly realized the half-worn lantern I'd brought had long been extinguished by wind and rain. This lantern had accompanied me for 6 years. Back when Xie Jin first began tutoring me, he once struck my palms until they swelled. Furious, I ran out and hid, crying. Only after crying until late into the night did fear finally overtake me. The dark, deep alleyway seemed like a beast ready to devour me. Terrified, I ran headlong forward and crashed straight into Xie Jin's arms. He was holding this very lantern. With one hand, he patted my back, his eyes filled with worry. Even if you're angry with me again, don't ever run off like that, okay? The lantern went out, and so did our connection. I tossed the lantern onto the riverbank and bent down to board the boat. The boatman, an elderly couple, took my silver without question. Smiling, they stoked the charcoal stove to warm me. Suddenly, commotion erupted on the shore. The couple peered out and sighed, damn it all, they're selling their daughter. I couldn't help but peer over too. There, a young girl was being dragged forward by an old man. In the struggle, she was shoved to the ground. The drunken old man bellowed, you good for nothing. I'll sell you off today and gamble away my money. The girl wailed heart-wrenchingly, better to die clean than be sold to some filthy place. The kind-hearted boatman couldn't help but step ashore to intervene. The old man glared and spat, if you've got the guts, buy her yourself. Who the hell are you, some poor schmuck, to meddle in my business? I touched the crude hairpin in my temple, sighing in disappointment. Lowering my gaze, I looked at the soft boots on my feet. Xie Jin had sent them back through an intermediary. Jade was inlaid at the heel, gold adorned the toe. Even during my worst times, when I stayed up late copying books for money, I never considered pawning these boots. After some thought, I called the boatman over to discuss. He then carried my soft boots out, employing both persuasion and coercion. The jade and gold on these boots are worth a fortune. Take your profit and get lost. The old man's eyes gleamed greedily as he grinned triumphantly, shoving the girl toward the boat. I lifted the curtain, the lights on the shore still shone brightly. The old man ripped the jade and gold from the boots. The now worthless soft boots were tossed aside carelessly. They landed right beside the half-worn lantern. No time to look back, the boat was already drifting away from the shore. The old boatman couple gave me a pair of worn shoes. They hurriedly brought a bowl of hot soup to soothe the girl, who had fainted from crying. I tucked the small floral cloth bundle the old lady had given me close to my chest. 3 days by boat, and I'd reach Liangzhou. Jiang Yintan had only minor scrapes. Xie Jin patiently soothed her for a while before escorting her back. Thinking of Xiao Chan still waiting for him, he hurriedly turned his horse and raced back. Earlier, she had cried so pitifully, even tearing up the marriage contract. It was a side of her he had never seen before. He couldn't help recalling 6 years ago, when Xiao Chan first came to the Xie household. Her eyes, as big as black grapes, had peeked mischievously at him from behind her grandmother's back. Though he was naturally reserved, that moment had struck him as amusing. Xie Jin thought of her becoming his wife someday. Her messy handwriting was bound to draw laughter, so he found himself patiently teaching her. Her smile grew more frequent, and she chattered with him more often. Little Chan was like a clever little tattletale. She complained about being tricked by a fake beggar out of 2 coins, accused grandmother of secretly eating all the pastries, and asked if his daily cold demeanor meant he owed money somewhere. He'd even wondered if their future children would be as chatty as her. But after 3 years away, through countless nights lit only by flickering oil lamps, the face that always appeared before him was hers, vivid and alive. Xie Jin's heart pounded wildly as he spurred his horse back to the tower. He flung open the door. The candlestick on the table had long since grown cold. The candle had burned to ash, like someone's tears. The word Xiao Chan caught in his throat. He couldn't utter a sound for a long while. A kind-hearted waiter carrying tea passed by and pointed toward the riverbank, looking for the girl in the green dress earlier. She went that way. Xie Jin muttered a muffled thank you. He hurried downstairs and followed the riverbank. Suddenly, he saw something. He froze completely. His heart pounded wildly, blood rushing to his head. His hands went limp, and the umbrella fell limp to the ground. By the shore hung that familiar old lantern. And Xiao Chan's soft boots. Xie Jin blinked in disbelief. The jade and gold ornaments on the boots were gone, likely snatched by passers-by. Xie Jin clutched the tattered lantern tightly. His heart ached so fiercely it made breathing difficult. A boatman's call echoed, "High tide. Fine sailing tonight." Xie Jin staggered to his feet, following the sound. He grabbed the boatman by the collar and demanded, "Where's the girl who was here just now?" The boatman froze, terrified by Xie Jin's bloodshot eyes. Hesitating, he was startled again by Xie Jin's fierce shout, "I asked where she is." Xie Jin was shoved violently. "Are you out of your mind? Who could see anything in this downpour? That girl sat on the bank for so long, she probably drowned herself." His face drained of color as he collapsed to the ground. The metallic taste of blood surged up his throat, threatening to spill over. Without a second thought, he plunged headfirst into the river. The icy water clung to him like a bone-chilling scourge, rushing into his lungs and flooding his throat. Xie Jin reached out, as if grasping for something. Only bone-chilling river water met his palm. Before he lost consciousness, he heard someone shout, "Quick, save her!" Someone jumped in. Liangzhou, situated on the frontier bordering the Xinbei, was a place of simple folk and peaceful living. Gobi deserts, beacon towers, solitary smoke rising over the vast desert. The Guangzhou melody, the Liangzhou lyrics, the Yangguan San Dai. Here lies a desolate world I've never known. I rented a small courtyard. The elderly neighbors all said, "The prefect is upright and incorruptible, a rare good official. With him here, Liangzhou is governed with such order." I'd heard it said before. Life in Liangzhou was harsh, sometimes even a letter home was a luxury. When Liangzhou folk wished to entrust words to their kin, they'd seek out one of the few literate tutors, paying a few copper coins for the master to write on their behalf. Tutors were scarce to begin with, and with daytime lessons to teach, they had no spare moments. Only by lighting lamps late into the night could they stay up writing for others. But with so many letters to write, how could they ever finish? I thought about it and set up a small stall outside the gate, specializing in writing letters home. Those grandmas and grandpas were very kind-hearted. Before long, word spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. People came to me to write letters home in a never-ending stream. They pressed into my hands not just copper coins, but steaming wontons, fragrant chicken drumsticks, and bright red candied hawthorn berries. Countless smiling faces affectionately called me Little Miss Chui or Miss Jinshi. All those years, I followed the dying wishes of my parents. That flimsy marriage contract seemed to be the very foundation of my existence. They never considered. What if Xie Jin didn't love me? People should never beg for affection from others. Leaning on someone else always means the day they abandon you will come. Only now did I realize with a start, I wasn't a cat or a dog. I was a woman, a flesh and blood person just like Xie Jin. I am not his little Chan, nor his appendage, I am simply myself. I've been called Little Chan for too long. I'd nearly forgotten. How beautiful the name Xie Jin she truly is. That night, I sat by lamplight writing a letter. As drowsiness overtook me and I prepared to extinguish the lamp, a dark shadow suddenly appeared behind me. Before I could cry out, a cold blade pressed against my throat. The figure behind me spoke coldly, "One false move and you're dead." His Mandarin was thick with foreign accent. The mirror on the table reflected a face of another race. High nose, deep-set eyes, a faint yellow beard. A Xianbei! My heart leapt to my throat, terror making me tremble. Outside, flames blazed skyward as someone kicked open the courtyard gate. A group of torch-bearing officials surrounded us. The leader, a young man in crimson official robes, held a longbow, "Release the hostage, and I'll spare your life." His voice sounded strangely familiar. The Xinbei man was cunning, "Prepare fast horses to take me out of the city. If not, I'll die taking her with me." My legs gave way as he dragged me outside. Cold sweat drenched my temples. The Xinbei man held me hostage as he retreated to the high platform, waiting for the horses. He was too tense, his grip too tight. A blade had already slit my throat. Fearing the Xinbei man would harm me, the youth below had no choice but to lower his bow and arrows. A tense standoff ensued. Out of nowhere, an elderly woman emerged, brandishing a large iron shovel. She charged forward and swung it with all her might, aiming for the Xinbei man's head. Just as the Xinbei man kicked her away, his grip on the dagger faltered for an instant. In that split second, an inexplicable courage surged through me. The sweat from nervousness made my palms slippery. I clenched the hairpin in my fist with all my might and plunged it into the Xinbei man's eye. The force was so great the hairpin's tail tore through my palm. Blood covered my hands, indistinguishable, mine or his. The Xinbei man clutched his eye, screaming in agony, and swung his blade at me. An arrow shot past my temple like a white rainbow piercing the sun, driving itself deep into the Xinbei man's palm. The dagger fell to the ground. Before I could react, a second arrow pierced his chest. Foul-smelling blood spurted out. Witnessing such a scene for the first time, half my scalp tingled. The Xianbei warrior wasn't quite dead yet. His eyes bulged with rage as he pushed me backward. I tumbled from the high platform, wind whistling past me. The terror of falling made me shut my eyes tight. The expected pain never came. I landed in broad, strong arms. Opening my eyes, I saw the wind billowing the crimson robes of an official. The youth, as bright as the moon, held me securely in his embrace. I finally saw his face clearly and remembered those deep, ink-black eyes. No wonder his voice sounded so familiar. The joy of meeting an old friend in a foreign land surged over me like a tide. My eyes lit up, and I couldn't help but cry out, "Master?" The waning moon of Liangzhou bathed the small courtyard in light, making it look like a pool of water. The man who had just held me hostage was a Xianbei spy. Fortunately, no one was hurt this time. I held the medicine brewed by the physician, held my breath, and gulped it down in one go. The bitterness nearly made me vomit. A hand with perfectly proportioned bones appeared before me, offering several dried sour apricots. Lu Jie smiled at me. I had someone buy these earlier. They'll help ease the bitterness. The bitterness on my tongue was greatly diluted. Recalling how I'd grimaced in bitterness, likely looking quite ridiculous, I felt a sudden flush of embarrassment. "Thank you, master." My gaze fell upon his crimson official robes. He was now the governor of Liangzhou, no longer my teacher. I instantly cursed my slip of the tongue, stammering an awkward correction, "Your Excellency." Lu Jie chuckled softly, "No need for such formality." The one who first mentioned Liangzhou to me was none other than him. It was during my first year as Jiang Yuntin's companion reader. The tutor the Jiang household hired for the younger generation of their clan was none other than Lu Jie. Back then, he was very thin, his entire frame almost gaunt. A scholar from Liangzhou's humble origins, it was unclear how he had attained such learning. Rumor had it he'd once been a third-place scholar in the imperial examinations, but his unyielding integrity had earned him enemies in the power struggles, leading to his downfall and loss of official rank. The ties among aristocratic families were as tangled as vines. Naturally, clan members supported each other while excluding outsiders. I still recall his first lecture. The Jiang sisters peered curiously from behind the screen. Their cheeks flushed as they watched, but I caught a young master snorting in disdain. Jiang Yuntan tugged at the corner of his mouth, such a handsome face, yet so poor he can't even afford decent clothes. Hearing this, I glanced up from behind the screen. The man looked somewhat downcast, his blue robe faded from washing, with a patch here and there. Yet, he possessed an unyielding pride, tapping his ruler on the desk with a detached air. All the quiet disdain was effortlessly silenced. Less than half a year later, I heard he had stormed back to Liangzhou in anger. I heard a young woman arrived in Liangzhou city who writes letters for others. Never imagined it would be you. Lu Jie smiled radiantly, his gaze fixed unwaveringly on me. In the moonlight, I noticed he had grown even more handsome and heroic than before. Few could wear the crimson official robe as splendidly as he did. I chuckled and remarked, "When you spoke of Liangzhou to me back then, you surely never imagined we'd meet here today." His gaze lingered on my hands as he hesitated, asking, "After so many years apart, do the chilblains still flare up in winter?" "These past years. Have you been well?" During our impoverished days, I'd wash clothes by the riverbank. My hands froze into a pitiful sight, swollen and purple-black, quite frightening. Lu Jie once witnessed it. Unable to bear it, he snatched the tub to wash for me. I panicked, my face turning pale. How could I trouble the master? This is improper. A maiden's garments are truly inconvenient. He pressed his lips together, saying nothing. I feared I'd angered him, frantically searching for ways to ease the awkwardness. When I looked up, he was already far away. But the next day after class, as I gathered my writing implements, I found an unopened jar of frostbite ointment tucked beneath my desk. That evening, I rubbed the salve into my hands, feeling warmth spread through them. I hadn't expected he'd remembered after all these years. I awkwardly smoothed my wind-tossed hair. The frostbite has healed considerably. Later, Xie Jin's scheming proved quite effective, and the household's finances were no longer as strained as before. The old lady, feeling sorry for me, secretly hired 2 maidservants to attend to me. Naturally, I was no longer needed to starch and wash clothes. The sky had grown quite dark. I rose to see Lu Jie out of the courtyard. The wind rustled the leaves, their swaying shadows rippling like waves. Dappled tree shadows fell upon us. The moon over Liangzhou was truly beautiful, its light reflecting in his eyes. He suddenly stopped, as if holding back for a long time before asking, "Have you married?" Lu Jie had been gone for a long time. My mind was still in turmoil when I finally fell asleep. Lying down in a daze, I absent-mindedly propped my left foot on my right knee and stared into space for a while before drowsiness finally overtook me. Back then, when I sent letters home to Xie Jin, I always saved them up before mailing them. I hid several letters in a cloth bundle, waiting until after class to beg the messenger to carry them. Back then, the capital was drenched in endless rain. Jiang Yuntan accused me of stealing her bracelet, ordering servants to empty my bundle onto the floor. Scattered items littered the ground. Only then did she flick the bracelet on her wrist, smiling indifferently. My mistake, I forgot they go on the wrist. A single glance swept over the letters on the floor. The maids shoved me aside and snatched the family letters. That shameless little wench! Writing secret letters to her lover. Amidst the shrill jeers, I scrambled to retrieve them, stumbling after them as they dashed into the rain. Someone shoved me hard from behind, sending me crashing to the ground. Blood seeped from my scraped arm. The crowd scattered like startled birds. Jiang Yuntan passed by, umbrella raised, her embroidered shoes stepping on the letters without haste. The scattered family letters lay trampled and ruined. Rain dripped steadily, soaking my back as I lay low on the ground. I felt numb, tears mingling with rainwater streaming down my face. After a long while, an umbrella appeared overhead. "Cui Shenxi?" I lifted my rain-soaked face and saw Master Lu's expression. He was always stern, his words sharp when he scolded. Those young masters who once looked down on him now feared him without exception. Fearing his scolding, I quickly lowered my head to tidy up the mess, scheming how to escape. Suddenly, a hand rested on my arm through my thin clothing. It was a large, masculine hand, calloused at the knuckles from years of wielding brushes and bows. My hair stood on end with fright, but he swiftly helped me up, his touch fleeting. Lu Jie thrust the umbrella into my hands. He bent down to gather the scattered family letters for me. Several had been blown away by the wind, likely lost forever. I stared at him blankly until he returned the papers to me, spread them out to dry. Perhaps they can be restored. This was clearly his consolation. The ink had already run, how could they ever be as they were? Seeing my head droop, he added, "Don't be sad. Actually, I envy you a little." I didn't understand. My mind went blank, yet I forced a smile. "Why would you envy me, master?" He turned his face toward me. His eyes, deep as ink, made my heart race. "I don't envy you. I envy the person who receives so many family letters." My heart pounded wildly, and I sat up abruptly. I had dreamed of events from 3 years ago. Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I exhaled a long breath. I must have been overthinking things. My gaze fell upon the jade pendant on the table, the one Lu Jie had given me before he left. He said if any urgent matter arose, I could take this to find him. Suddenly, I felt ashamed. Master Lu had been so kind to me, how could I have such thoughts? During my year in Liangzhou, Lu Jie had looked after me with great care. I used to love begonia, but the soil here made it nearly impossible to grow. So he planted a wood hibiscus in my courtyard and somehow procured a beautiful calico kitten, naming it Shaoli. It would chase after my skirt hem, meowing constantly. The old woman next door couldn't help but tease me. I wonder when we'll get to taste the wedding wine for the two of you. I gasped in shock, waving my hands frantically. Master Lu was once my tutor. You mustn't speak so lightly. She smiled, her eyes crinkling. What does that matter? He was your tutor then, but now he's your husband. Good heavens! The folkways of Liangzhou are truly bold. The old lady insisted some important figure was visiting the city today, dragging me along to join the commotion. Through the dense crowd, I spotted a figure strikingly similar to Xie Jin. Just as I hesitated, the figure suddenly turned its face. It really was him. I quickly ducked my head. After our falling out that day, I'd stormed off, never wanting to see him again. Who would have thought he'd come to Liangzhou? Hiding behind the crowd, I watched as the sedan curtain lifted, revealing a girl in a veil, a graceful beauty. I knew instantly it was Jiang Yuntan. Just as I sneered, Xie Jin offered her his hand, his other large hand supporting her waist as he carefully helped her down from the carriage. I couldn't help recalling an argument I'd had with Xie Jin before. He'd sulked and refused to help me down, so I insisted on jumping out myself. I ended up twisting my ankle and cried out in pain. Xie Jin merely looked down at my tears from above. He said coldly, "You can't even get off a carriage properly. How clumsy can you be?" So it turned out he could be this gentle when helping someone down from a carriage. Only that person wasn't me. The old woman beside me shook her head, pulling me back from my thoughts. Everyone says some dashing big shot has arrived, but he's nothing special. He's not nearly as handsome as our magistrate Lu. Seeing I didn't respond, she pressed on, "Tell me, am I right?" I smiled and nodded. "You're absolutely right, Grandma." Xie Jin had already walked far away. He probably didn't know I was here, and I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. That night, I trimmed the wick of the lamp. Half asleep, the scent of tung oil tickled my nose. When I opened my eyes again, flames shot skyward. The small courtyard was instantly engulfed in a sea of fire, choking smoke pouring in relentlessly. I poured all the tea water onto the curtain, tore it down, and pressed it over my nose and mouth. I took 2 steps forward, then suddenly remembered Little Fox was hiding somewhere. Frantic, I searched the entire room, but it must have been scared senseless. No matter how much I called, I heard no response. The thick smoke choked me, making it nearly impossible to breathe. Finally, I spotted Shaoli trembling under the bed and rushed to scoop it up. Someone burst in, grabbed my arm, and dragged me out. By the time the constables and neighbors helped extinguish the fire, the meticulously arranged courtyard was destroyed. The hibiscus I'd tended for so long bloomed for just one night before withering completely into ashes. Holding Shaoli, I watched all this unfold before my eyes. My heart ached unbearably, tears silently streaming down my cheeks. This was my only home. The person who had just saved me stepped forward. "Miss Cui, my master requests your presence." We wound through a long, twisting alley. A carriage stood parked at a quiet corner in the distance. I lifted the jade-green curtain. Light cascaded down from his dark, intense eyes, sweeping past my feet like a dividing line between us. His long fingers reached out, brushing my face to wipe away the ashes that had settled there. Slow and deliberate, as if teasing a beloved pet. After a moment, Xie Jin smiled softly. "Little Chan, look how disheveled you've made yourself. It's time to return to my side." His smile was serene, yet his knuckles whitened from the tight grip of his hand. I felt a chill run through me and stumbled back a step, trying to evade his touch. But as soon as I retreated, my arm was seized. Xie Jin yanked me into his embrace, his gaze stubborn. "You've lost weight. Have these days been hard for you?" Everything that happened had its reasons. Wait for me to explain slowly. "Xiao Chan, you must believe me, this life, I only have eyes for you." I truly didn't understand. How could he act so natural, as if none of those past grievances had ever existed? I pressed my palms hard against his shoulders to keep from collapsing onto his lap. But I don't like you anymore. Belated concern, explanations, and love, these things, when they appear too late, only make one feel sick. The night wind's chills seeped through my bones. Xie Jin's dark, unblinking eyes fixed on me. He rose, his shadow engulfing me entirely. Why can't you love me as you did before? I tried to step back, but my arms were gripped tightly by his. Trapped, I nearly choked out the words, "You burned my courtyard to force me back to you?" But I'm not the little Chan I once was. Xie Jin, you're despicable and vile. How dare you think I could ever love you? He gripped me so tightly it felt like he might crush my bones, but you have nowhere else to go. If you return, one day we'll grow old together, surrounded by children and grandchildren. Xie Jin leaned in close, his warm, ragged breath brushing my ear. I could no longer bear the sickening sensation. Rage consumed my reason. Without a second thought, I yanked the golden hairpin from my temple and thrust it fiercely toward the arm before me. But I never imagined Xie Jin would choose to be stabbed rather than release his grip. After the incident where I was held hostage by the Xinbei, Lu Jia had given me a new golden hairpin. He had sharpened the tip to a razor's edge, intending it for my self-defense. The pin pierced Xie Jin's clothing with ease, sinking deep into his flesh. Blood stained the fabric crimson, trickling down his arm and along the pin's shaft. My hand gripping the golden hairpin trembled uncontrollably. Just as I was about to pull my hand away and flee, Xie Jin seized my wrist, his expression unflinching. "I owe you too much. If this brings you some measure of comfort, then so be it." I finally wrenched my hand free. "Have you lost your mind?" The color drained from Xie Jin's face. "Yes. I went mad after you left, feigning death. Seeing you smile at others drove me mad with jealousy." I sighed and told him calmly, "From the moment you chose Jiang Yuntan, from the moment you ignored every letter I wrote, every grievance I bore, our bond was slowly eroded. No one will wait forever." Xie Jin swayed slightly, staring at me in stunned silence. I turned away, refusing to meet his gaze, and lifted the curtain to dismount. He called my name reluctantly, reaching out to block my path. Just then, the clatter of hooves echoed through the night. Lu Jia rode up, his crimson official robe vivid against the night. Gripping the reins with one hand, he dismounted with a deft flip. "Mr. Xia, do you think Liangzhou has no laws?" Seeing Lu Jia arrive, I lifted my skirt and leaped from the carriage. My movement was too hasty, and I collided directly with Lu Jia. The emerald hem of my skirt brushed against the gold embroidery on his official robe, the jade belt at his waist emitting a clear chime. He caught me with unhurried ease, his gaze meeting Xie Jin's with icy intensity. Xie Jin sneered, "Lord Lu, such imposing authority. Xiao Chan and I were betrothed since childhood. We are betrothed spouses renewing old ties. How dare you interfere?" Lu Jia raised an eyebrow. "What if I insist on interfering?" Xie Jin, enraged, laughed bitterly. "We were classmates, after all. A friend's wife is off limits. Have you no shame?" The old woman said Xie Jin was a newly arrived big shot. Fearing trouble for Lu Jia, I quickly tugged at his sleeve. He glanced at me, his expression unexpectedly wounded. Xie Jin drew a branch of begonia from his sleeve and held it before my eyes. Dew still clung to its petals. He'd gone to great lengths to bring it from 1,000 miles away. His voice was eerily hoarse. "Xiao Chan, I've punished every one of those who wronged you. Come back with me. We'll plant a whole courtyard of begonias again. This time, they won't wither." Before he finished speaking, I flung the branch away. Petals scattered, drifting between us. Just like that torn-up marriage contract from years ago. "You always said begonia never rots, love never fades." My embroidered shoe crushed the blossoms beneath my foot, but back then, when Jiang Yuntan pushed me into the lake just to retrieve the bracelet you gave her, I nearly drowned. The roots of the crabapple tree rotted away long ago. Blood dripped from Xie Jin's arm. He reached out recklessly to grab my wrist, veins bulging on his neck. That was only a temporary measure. Later. Lu Jia had already pulled me behind him. His fingertips hovered just half an inch from my shoulder, offering a faint, protective barrier. I plucked the hibiscus fragments tangled in my hair, letting the night wind scatter them. The marriage contract is destroyed. We ceased to be betrothed long ago. With that, I turned and walked away. Moonlight stretched our shadows long and thin. Lu Jia's shadow stood tall and straight. The night breeze was chilly. His wide sleeves billowed like a crane's wings as he carefully shielded me from the wind behind me. Xie Jin suddenly spoke. Lu Jia, do you know? She has a red mole on her shoulder. Lu Jia took a step forward and abruptly covered my ears. But it was too late. I had already heard it. Turning back, the moonlight illuminated the faint disgust in my eyes. Like a silver chain coiling around Xie Jin's neck. He now realized his own foolishness, swallowing his words as a damp hue spread across his eyes. I no longer looked at him, only coldly stated, "Don't make me despise you." The courtyard burned to the ground. Lu Jia escorted me to the magistrate's office, riding side by side with me. Xie Jin knew about the red mole on my shoulder. There was a story behind it. As a child, he was playful, yet his father was exceptionally strict. Once, when my father took me to the Xie residence, he was being whipped, his white clothes stained with blood. Too young to understand, I cried out and threw myself forward to block a lash for him. It struck my shoulder instead. Our elders were terrified, scrambling to tend to my wound. He stood helplessly outside the crowd, tears in his eyes. "I swear I'll treat Sister Cui well for the rest of my life." But back then, none of us knew. Tonight, he would use this very memory to utter such vile words. Only when a silk handkerchief brushed past my eyes did I realize I had been crying. Feeling embarrassed, I diverted the conversation. "Sir, you were actually classmates with Xie Jin?" Lu Jia hummed in acknowledgement. "We merely spent half a year together at the academy." As if lost in memory, a faint smile touched his lips. "Actually, that year on the day of Jingxia, I saw you." His words made me recall, there had indeed been a Jingxia that year. Shortly after Xie Jin left, a spring rain began to fall. Worried he hadn't brought an umbrella, I went to look for him at the academy. Through the window, I glimpsed a group quietly reviewing their lessons. I often waited for Xie Jin there back then. Some of his classmates, the more reckless sort, loved to play pranks. After a while, he grew annoyed. He disliked being caught, so he forbade me from coming anymore. At that time, his classmates were all present, and I didn't want to disturb them. I could only hide beneath the window. Rainwater slid down the eaves, soaking the tips of my shoes, and I instinctively drew back. Someone noticed the few lines of vermilion ink scribbled in Xie Jin's book. Beside them was a charmingly clumsy pig's head drawing, and they couldn't help but chuckle. "Brother Xie, these annotations are truly amusing." Upon closer look, they even possess a certain literary flair. Hearing the praise, the corners of my mouth lifted slightly. Then Xie Jin's voice, laced with sarcasm, cut through the air. "The work of a lady of the inner chambers, mere trifles to pass the time, hardly worthy of serious consideration." Deeply hurt, I dropped the umbrella from my hand. Separated by a single window, the others were startled. "What's that noise outside?" I had just set down the umbrella and was about to flee. The window lifted slightly, revealing a pair of sharp, handsome brows and eyes. My eyes filled with tears, my cheeks flushed crimson with shame. He turned calmly and said, "Nothing." A kitten knocked the umbrella over. That was the first time I saw Lu Jia. Memories long blurred began to sharpen. My heart pounded like thunder. "That person was you?" Lu Jia smiled. "Yes, it was me." I unconsciously twisted the silk handkerchief in my hand. "Thank you so much, Your Honor, for coming to my rescue back then." So we had met so long ago. My curiosity about him surged. Just as I wanted to ask more, we arrived at the magistrate's office. I couldn't help but feel annoyed. This journey was far too short. Fortunately, the fire was contained in time, sparing the neighbors. Only some family letters, never sent, were lost to the flames. It was truly a headache. After paying compensation according to the law, I had little left for repairs. The next day, as I sat in the courtyard fretting, the little boy from the old woman next door hobbled over on his short legs. He held out his chubby little arm before my eyes. It was a heavy pouch. I opened it to find silver coins at the bottom, topped with strings of copper coins. The boy mumbled, "A young lady outside just now asked me to give this to you. She said she was afraid you might refuse, so she told me to tell you this is to repay the favor for those boots." I snatched the pouch and dashed out the door in pursuit. All I caught was the distant silhouette of a young woman. She seemed to sense something and turned back. Our eyes met, and I froze. It was indeed the girl I'd saved by the riverbank that night long ago. When we parted then, she'd mentioned her beloved maternal grandfather happened to sell tofu in Liangzhou. But after her mother died, her father forbade any contact between them. By some twist of fate, she had ended up in the right place after all. Today she looked radiant, dressed in fresh clothes, her cheeks fuller, clearly she was doing well. Seeing me rush to catch up, the girl hastily waved at me, then turned and vanished in a flash. The pouch in my palm burned so fiercely it nearly brought tears to my eyes. I let out a long sigh. At the very least, you could have told me your name. When I returned, someone else was in the courtyard. Lu Jia was off duty today. Dressed in a light blue robe, he was tending to new plants. Little Li, who had been curled up asleep in her bed, saw him and leaped over to rub against the hem of his robe, meowing softly. I tidied up the courtyard. These plants were given by the old ladies. I hoped they'd bring you some joy. My heart warmed, and my eyes stung. "Thank you, Lord Lu." He shook his head, gently stroking little Li as he smiled at me. "There's no need for such formality between us." With that, he pulled a thick stack of letters from his sleeve and handed them to me. "I had some free time today, so last night I reconstructed the destroyed family letters for you. See if they match up?" To save time and write more letters at night, I jotted down key points for each person during the day. Fortunately, they were stored in clay jars, which preserved them. My trembling fingers accepted the stack, 52 letters in total, all written by Lu Jia in a single night. "Why are you crying?" He frantically searched for a silk handkerchief, while the little fox in his arms rolled over discontentedly and scratched him. His wide sleeve slipped down, revealing a jade-like wrist bone still bearing burn marks. I was startled to see the scar was almost identical to mine. Lu Jia smiled at me. "It's nothing. I accidentally knocked over the candlestick last night." I sniffed back tears and looked at him earnestly. "Let me tend to your wound, Your Excellency." I sat beside Lu Jia, dipping my fingertips in the ointment to apply it to his wrist. The warmth of his skin sent my thoughts drifting. I couldn't help but ask with concern, "Your Excellency, you became the governor of Liangzhou after only a few years back there. You must have endured much hardship." I'd been curious about this before. But our status difference made him feel distant, like the moon high in the sky. So I'd kept some emotional distance. Yet after spending so much time together, I now felt he was actually quite close. Lu Jia gestured to me. "Yes. Someone slashed my chest before. I nearly lost my life." I gasped, grabbing his hand. A smile touched his eyes, but it was precisely this incident that earned me the emperor's favor. When I first came to Liangzhou, I was merely a minor county magistrate. During the Xianbei surprise attack, the garrison commander abandoned the city and fled. That's when I was slashed across the chest. I squeezed his hand tightly, asking anxiously, "Then what happened?" Naturally, I rallied the people to turn the tide. The Xianbei were defeated, and the fighting ceased. His brow remained serene, making him seem like a leisurely nobleman, hardly someone who'd endured hardship. Even when recounted so casually, these tales left me, a commoner, utterly breathless. I remained speechless for a long time. Lu Jie smiled and asked me, "Did I scare you?" "Those are all old stories now." Without thinking, I shook my head. "No, I'm not afraid. I just feel a little heartache for you." Realizing what I had said was too late. My face flushed crimson, my ears burning hot. I scrambled to my feet, stammering an explanation. "No, what I meant was..." He chuckled softly, cutting me off. "Then I regret not telling you sooner." After tidying the courtyard, someone knocked at the door. A group of soldiers arrived, jostling the young recruit in their midst with playful shoves. The boy stammered, "I want to write a letter to my mother back home." The others roared with laughter, "Your mother can't read. This kid clearly wants to write to his fiancée." I smiled knowingly. "What would you like to write?" The youth stammered, essentially telling his mother to eat well and dress warmly, that he was safe and sound and she needn't worry. Mid-sentence, he paused, closing his eyes in embarrassment, and "I need to tell Ah Qiao I'll come back to marry her." His face flushed crimson. "Could you hold it for 2 days? Tomorrow's payday. I want to buy mother a new garment, then get Ah Qiao a hairpin." The others laughed kindly. "It's our fault for dragging you here today." I nodded. 2 more days won't matter. As long as your mother and Ah Qiao receive your letter, they'll be happy." The youth thanked us, then turned and fled out the gate. I closed the courtyard door and turned, my smile freezing on my lips. Xie Jin had appeared nearby without my noticing. His voice was soft, almost a whisper to himself. "Would you have been this happy if you'd received a reply back then?" The old wound was torn open once more. Yet I felt no pain. Indeed, I no longer cared. He continued speaking to himself. "After you left, I opened all your letters. I didn't read them then because I was afraid." Confused, I looked up at him. The twilight cast fine cracks across his face, revealing traces of tears lingering at the corners of his eyes. I feared that reading them would make me unable to resist writing back. So I couldn't read them, not because I didn't want to. My father's death and my mother's suicide were both caused by the Jiang family's machinations. Toppling the Jiang family is like an ant shaking a tree. All these years, my closeness to them was nothing but pretense. I feared they would harm you, so I had to pretend not to care for you. But you were betrothed to me since childhood, how could I not care for you? So this was the pain he carried. Shock and sorrow made me stumble back, but I no longer need your affection, Xie Jin. A tear splattered onto the blue-glazed brick. His face pale, he murmured an apology. I shook my head, unmoved. "I don't even need your apology, because I never intended to forgive you." Xie Jin removed the jade ring from his waist, his voice hoarse with emotion. "This was our betrothal token. I've kept it with me day and night. Xiao Chan, grandmother, and I both miss you terribly. Will you come back with me to see her?" I closed my eyes, speaking impatiently. "Stop calling me Xiao Chan. Have you forgotten my real name?" Just as he was about to speak, the closed courtyard gate kicked open. A shrill voice raged in fury. "Cui Zhenshi, you clingy bitch." Jiang Yuntan stormed into my courtyard, her skirt fluttering angrily. Shaoli, who had been crouched behind the stone bench watching Xie Jin and me, immediately darted out and hissed at her. Jiang Yuntan impatiently kicked him away, cursing, "You little beast." I quickly crouched down to pick up Shaoli and check on him. Fortunately, the kick hadn't been hard. Shaoli burrowed safely into my arms, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Jiang Yuntan lashed out at my face. "You left, so why still cling to Xie Lang?" Xie Jin seized her wrist mid-swing, snapping, "What are you doing?" She screamed hoarsely. How could you know her true intentions? She only feigned death by jumping into the river to win your pity. I stood up and slapped her hard across the face. Her hair fell loose, the hairpin slipping from her temple to the floor. Jiang Yuntan glared at me as if she could devour me alive. You dare strike me? Do you know my father is the newly appointed governor of Liangzhou? How dare you, you wretch! I'll chop off your hands. Xie Jin pulled her aside. Enough. She and I were merely catching up. She snatched an object and hurled it at me. Catching up? What kind of catching up? Why did you hide her jade ring under your pillow? Do you think I'm dead? I caught it and examined it. It was the very token of our betrothal. The other half of my jade ring, engraved with the characters Tong Gui, return together. Xie Jin's ring bore the characters' white hair. The night I left, my heart had already grown cold. I forgot to dispose of this jade ring. The betrothal long since dissolved. What use was this token now? I raised my hand and hurled it forcefully onto the ground. A crisp crack echoed as the jade shattered. Fragments of broken jade spun tremulously across the blue brick floor. What return could there be? My face turned cold. That slap repaid your earlier humiliation, yet it still wasn't enough. Now I've shattered this jade ring with my own hands. Xie Jin and I have long been severed. Do you understand? All color drained from Xie Jin's face. His gaze fixed stubbornly on the shards. I repeated myself, do you understand? If you do, then don't come bother me again. Jiang Yuntan glared at me with hatred. How strange. She was the one who humiliated me back then. If anyone should harbor hatred, it should be me toward her. Xie Jin, dazed and distraught, dragged her away. I crouched down to feed dried fish to Shaoli, soothing him gently. Yet a pang of shock still pierced my heart. The governor of Liangzhou? Truly, heaven is unjust. That evening, Lu Jia sent someone to deliver the rare book I'd long coveted. I pulled out 2 silver coins for the errand boy. Thank you for your trouble. Take this to buy wine and food. He pushed it away in alarm. The magistrate's been swamped with official duties these days, barely eating 3 meals a day. How could we dare take time off to drink? I considered for a moment. Could you wait a moment? I'll prepare a light supper for the magistrate and have you deliver it. The young boy blinked at me with a sly look. If the young lady were to deliver it personally, I'm sure the master would be far happier than seeing me. I couldn't help but give him a light slap. You're getting more and more out of line. In the end, I still carried the food box with him to the government office. Lu Jia was discussing matters in the front hall, so the boy led me into the study. The night wind blew fiercely in Liangzhou. As I reached to close the window, I accidentally knocked an ebony box off the desk onto the floor. Sheets of paper spilled out. I bent to pick them up, and upon recognizing what they were, I froze. The family letters that had been blown away in the rain that year lay here, untouched. The ink had smudged, the paper crumpled. Between each line, someone had added annotations in ink. The stroke here carries such fury, she must have been utterly wronged. These 2 characters bleed through the paper, written through gritted teeth in the dead of night. Beside them, a little cat with drooping whiskers was sketched. As I looked, I couldn't help but recall how, after catching a chill in the rain that day, my hands and feet remained icy cold the next morning. Lu Jia said little, only stoking the charcoal fire in the study brighter than usual. Lowering my gaze to the final line, the trembling script read, rather let me write in her stead, than bear to see her tear-stained face. Behind these letters lay several yellowed drawings. I stared fixedly, my nose stinging, my heart pounding in my chest. The door swung open as Lu Jia hurried over. You must have waited a long time. Why come all this way yourself so late at night? He saw me crouched on the floor, examining the contents of the ebony box. He froze in place, as if struck by lightning. I stared at him blankly. Lu Jia's Adam's apple bobbed. I'm sorry. I startled you. I steadied myself. The flickering candlelight danced in my eyes, and I felt my own eyes burning, as if they might catch fire too. No, actually Before I could finish, a constable shouted, "Bad news, Your Honor. Trouble at the city gates." Lu Jia's expression darkened with frustration. He was about to say something to me. I don't know what came over me, but suddenly I couldn't bear to part from him. I feared that if we separated for even a moment, I might never find the courage to voice my truest feelings. So I grabbed his sleeve urgently and blurted out before he could speak, "Can I go with you?" His furrowed brow relaxed. He nodded gently at me, "All right." Chaos reigned at the city gate. Piercing cries and curses filled the air. A figure lay in the center, blood soaking the ground beneath them. Their face was covered with white cloth. Judging by the uniform, it was a lowly city guard. His body bore countless slash marks, soaked in blood. The sight made my heart leap in terror. Spotting Lu Jia, someone pushed past the officers and collapsed at his feet, wailing, "Please, Your Honor." Li Zhuo was guarding the gate today. That nobleman arrived after curfew with no papers, demanding entry by force. In the struggle, he beat the poor soldier to death with his horsewhip. Near the besieged carriage, the arrogant servant continued bellowing, "You lowly rabble. Do you know who my master is?" Lu Jia picked up the whip from the ground and lashed it across the servant's face. A bloody gash split across his face. The pain sent him tumbling to the ground, his arrogance instantly vanishing. Another lash followed. Lu Jia, clearly enraged, bellowed at the curtain, "Get down from that horse." The curtain lifted, revealing a familiar face. I gasped. It was Jiang Huai, Jiang Yuntin's father, the newly appointed governor of Liangzhou. His normally pale, clean-shaven face reeked of alcohol. "Ming Yuan, when you were down on your luck, I gave you a position out of kindness. When you stormed off that day, you said the only clean things in the Jiang residence were the 2 stone lions at the gate. I let that go. But repaying kindness with ingratitude? That's hardly right." Jiang Huai chuckled, twirling his jade ring. "I merely arrived late to a banquet outside the city. The wine clouded my judgment momentarily." Why such harshness? My stomach churned at his words. A human life, in his eyes, could be equated with harshness. Such revolting behavior. Truly, the family's morals were corrupt. Lu Jia couldn't contain his rage. "Your official hat has become your shield. You study the sage's teachings yet act like a beast. What do you think human life and the law are?" "Guards! Take him away!" According to our dynasty's laws, a governor may temporarily suspend an official under investigation, reporting the reasons within 10 days. But Jiang Hui had only recently taken office, the ledgers couldn't yet be verified. As I worried for Lu Jia, I suddenly noticed something fall from the sleeve of the man on the ground. Focusing my gaze, I saw it was a silver hairpin. A wave of immense dread washed over me. I could no longer contain myself. Trembling, I reached out to lift the white cloth covering the body. The face of the youth, drained of blood, appeared before my eyes. Just yesterday, he'd been looking forward to receiving his pay today, to buy his mother a new garment and a hairpin for his beloved. Now, he lay as a cold corpse. My heart twisted in agony, and I began to weep, my whole body shaking. Several familiar soldiers approached, their eyes red-rimmed. Someone handed me a few copper coins, choking out a plea, "Miss Cui, this lad hasn't given you his money yet. Could you please finish writing his letter home for him?" I pushed his hand away, wiped my tears, and promised, "I will write it properly." Jiang Huai wasn't the only official in the Jiang family serving the court. Bringing him down over this single matter wouldn't be easy. Yet unexpectedly, Xie Jin sought out Lu Jia of his own accord. He laid out all the evidence he'd gathered over the years. Tax embezzlement, intercepting grain shipments, falsely branding law-abiding citizens as bandits to seize their property, reporting official fields as wasteland to reclaim land. Each case was shocking and appalling. Even the decline of the Xie family estate bore Jiang Huai's hand. Xie Jin smiled as he asked Lu Jie, "Do you recall our final day as classmates? When the master asked for our policy essays, how did you respond?" My hand paused mid-grind on the inkstone as I listened with curiosity. Lu Jie chuckled softly, "Better to die crying out than live in silence." Xie Jin nodded, "With words like that, I'll trust you this once." His gaze lingered on me with reluctance. "There are things I wish to tell you." So I rose and followed him out. Passing Lu Jie, he didn't even lift his head, seemingly calm and silent. But his brushstroke faltered, dragging a long, crooked trail. I curved my lips and slipped out quietly. Xie Jin and I walked side by side through the hanging flower gate. It was spring-summer in Liangzhou, and rose trellises showered petals across the ground. Just like the trellis we sat beneath as children. Back then, my baby teeth still remained. I was eating candy he gave me when I accidentally knocked one loose. I cried for a long while, wailing that no one would ever marry a girl with a missing tooth. He reached out to wipe my tears, saying with childlike innocence, "Then I'll marry Sister Cui as my wife." Later, his family faced upheaval. I was no longer in the capital, so we could only exchange letters across the distance. Now, here we are, a broken bond, impossible to mend. Recalling those days feels like a lifetime ago. Xie Jin clearly remembered them too. His eyes grew moist as he reached to pluck a fallen rose petal from my hair. But my sudden turn of the head froze his hand midair. These past years, his hardships were real. But my grievances were equally true. Truth is, I've always been stubborn. When I was little, my mother sewed me a small cloth cat. I cherished it so much I clung to it day and night. But one day, a distant cousin visited our home. Finding me absent, he played with the cloth cat until it was completely ruined. Later, even though my mother restored it to its original state, I no longer wanted it. In the silence that followed, Xie Jin sighed, "Is there truly no possibility for us anymore?" I answered calmly, "No, it's too late now." He seemed to be crying. Turning away, he braced himself against the flower stand with his left hand and finally choked out, "I'm sorry." I took a few steps away, hearing him call after me, "What about Lu Jie? Will you be with him?" I didn't answer. Nor did I look back. After Jiang Huai was imprisoned, I traveled to Li Zhuo's hometown. When news of his death first reached them, his mother wept day and night until her eyes grew dim. The girl called Aqiao cried herself into a tearful mess. I handed them the new clothes and that silver hairpin. Then I pushed the family letter toward them. "Li Zhuo cherished you deeply in his heart. He would surely want you to live well from now on." As I left, I slipped a silver note under the teacup. It was Lu Jie's heartfelt message, entrusted to me for delivery. When I returned to Liangzhou, autumn had arrived once more. A familiar figure stood not far from the city gate, hands behind his back, sighing. His attendant teased from the side, "Why the sigh, sir? Thinking of Miss Cui again?" Lu Jie sighed again, "It's too late today. Perhaps I'll return tomorrow." I chuckled and chimed in, "Who says it's too late?" He turned, his eyes warm and bright as starlight. During my absence, all matters had been settled. Jiang Huai had been executed, his family exiled one after another. Xie Jin had long administered a potion to Jiang Yuntan that would cause her features to rot. I heard that before she was led away in the street that day, she went mad and stabbed Xie Jin with a dagger. The dagger was poisoned. Though she was saved, that arm was ruined. And Xie Jin, having both overturned his father's conviction and earned merit this time, at the height of imperial favor, he voluntarily requested a posting to Lingnan. Before his departure, he wished to see me one last time. Through the door, I refused to meet him, merely advising him to take care in Lingnan's malaria-ridden climate. He left. Outside the door lay a bundle of neatly tied letters. They were the ones I had written long ago, each now bearing his reply. But I didn't want to read them. I turned and tossed all the letters into the fire. Lu Jie saw this, yet said nothing. He merely wore a faint smile all day. The next day, Lu Jie took his day off and invited me to the prefectural office. A faint fragrance drifted from beneath the lattice windows as he brewed tea for me. As the tea smoke curled, he offered a plate of dried sour apricots. "Try these. They're 3 times better than the ones from our school days." Even the dried apricots he gave me upon our reunion weren't a coincidence. He remembered I loved them. I took the teacup. That day in the study, I wasn't frightened. Actually, I was rather pleased. He lifted his eyes to meet mine, his expression calm. But his ears flushed crimson. I tilted my head in puzzlement. "There's just one painting I can't quite understand. When was that one of you climbing a tree?" Lu Jian calmly skimmed the foam from his teacup. "Earlier than that year's start of spring." I hummed in acknowledgement, unable to stop pondering it. Climbing a tree. Climbing a tree. Suddenly, it clicked. Back then, I was still quite playful, pestering Xie Jin to play hide-and-seek with me. He lost patience before even finding me and gave up. I hid alone in the tree until dusk fell, growing a little afraid. I wanted to come down but dared not. Just as I was whimpering, someone passed beneath the tree. I poked my head out and pleaded, "Could you go find Xie Jin for me? I can't get down." His voice carried a hint of amusement. "I'm his classmate. If you don't mind, just jump down. I'll catch you." I leaped, and he caught me securely. Fearing Xie Jin would scold me for violating propriety between men and women, I thanked him, then pushed him away with my back turned and ran off without looking back, never even catching a clear glimpse of his face. Thinking of this, my eyes widened in surprise. Lu Jie smiled at me. "Remember now? Then do you recall what I wrote on that painting?" My face flushed crimson instantly, and I lowered my gaze. Of course I remembered. On that painting, he had inscribed a line, "If I could seize the moon from the moon palace, I'd become the man who gathers streams." So that was it. Right then. The red phoenix star stirred, and fate was born in an instant. The end.